What's up, everyone, and welcome to the weekly Q&A. For our first question, Damien Vonderhaar asks if we will see Wedge or any other legendary pilots in Rogue Squadron.
I mean, we have to, right?
You've been saying Wedge probably for a while, or that you want to see Wedge.
I think Wedge has to be in it. That just, I don't know, it's the first name you think of when you think of Rogue Squadron. Like, canon, legends, whatever. Wedge is like a quintessential member of Rogue Squadron.
Unless you don't know what Rogue Squadron is, and to which I think it's anybody.
Right, but I think that I would be a little upset. I'd be disappointed if Wedge weren't in it. I mean, he's like everybody's go-to pilot. Everyone, except for mine, obviously. But,
I was like, what?
Like, most people, I think even more casual fans know who Wedge is. He's like an introduction. Wow, you're just like... I was not expecting pushback on this.
I don't know. I mean, I think it's a given to some people, but if this is like a brand new story, it might be brand new characters.
It's gotta be related to what came before, though. And just the way Patty Jenkins is talking about developing it, she's like, yeah, we're looking at the books, we're looking at the games, and everything, the movies, like everything that came before. So that's not saying that the story is going to be based off of any of those stories. She said they're not doing that. It's an original story, but just knowing how important Wedge is to all of those things, I'm like, bring him in. And Dennis Lawson, like, they brought him back into the fold for The Rise of Skywalker, put him in an X-Wing, whether or not they age him, like de-age him, or if it's post-sequel trilogy, whatever. I want to see Dennis Lawson back in an X-Wing cockpit.
We'll see.
I also had the idea the other day of, like, what if we do some flashbacks? Because personally, I think it makes sense to have it be post-Episode 9, like, Wedge is handing off the torch to the new generation. But it would be cool if the whole thing kicked off with a flashback to the original trilogy era, because then you still, like, get the de-aged Dennis Lawson. Yeah, you might get to see Hobby or some other pilots. It's probably too early for Biggs, unfortunately, but it would be cool to kick things off with, like,
too early for Biggs?
Too late for Biggs, I mean. Yeah.
I was like, what?
You're right. Biggs is too early for them. So it would be cool to kick things off with, like, a flashback to the original trilogy era, just so we still got, like, that original Rogue Squadron action, and then jump into the sequel trilogy.
I'm gonna just be the devil's advocate here and say that it's gonna be nobody familiar.
You're gonna say right now we're not gonna see Wedge Antilles in the Rogue Squadron movie.
Yes.
And I'm saying he's gonna be in it. What are we betting?
We'll figure it out.
Okay, we'll figure something out, but you're wrong.
Caleb Diaz wants to know if the High Republic will follow the same characters and conflict for the entire era, or will each phase be unique?
I kind of think that we're going to see characters come and go. I will be surprised if the Nihil and the Drengir are, like, prevalent throughout the rest of all three phases. I kind of get the sense that they're going to be maybe just a phase 1 threat. Marchion Ro, I think, is going to be around for a long time, but I don't know, the way just the first 2 books have gone, and we might know slightly more, we're recording this right before the High Republic panel on Friday, but the way the first 2 waves have gone, I'm like, oh, they might really be pulling the rug out from under us, like misdirecting us and stuff.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like the Nihil are just the beginning. Marchion Ro is an awesome villain. I think he'll stick around longer, but... Oh, there's that lawnmower again. Yep. I think he'll stick around a little bit longer, but there's got to be something bigger, badder coming in phase 2, and definitely in phase 3.
Ooh, I just got kind of like a trope that I love is, like, the bad guys coming good and, like, helping out the good guys. What if Marchion... My theory is that, like, maybe he gives way to something far worse, which is kind of hinted at in The Rising Storm. What if he realizes what he did and is like, let me help you out here, and joins them?
I don't see him joining
I like
the
that.
Jedi.
I don't really either, but if they found a way to do that, I'd be so for it.
We'll see.
You keep just a we'll see.
I keep saying that, but
We'll see. That's Molly's being a negative Nelly today.
President Bubbles asks why some clones got such a sense of nobility and morality when Jango Fett and their training probably wouldn't have led to that kind of outlook.
Because that's like one of the major themes of the Clone Wars, is that you can be identical, genetically identical to the person next to you, but your experiences are going to change who you are. So, yeah, some clones, I mean, every clone grew up as a clone of Jango Fett, and they had this certain training, but then they were paired up with Jedi, and the different Jedi that worked with them would change who they became.
Yeah. I mean, the cloning process made them more docile, but they didn't really go into much detail other than that on like what they did to alter the clones.
That is true. They were like, yeah, the inhibitor chips partially help us control them. Well, I mean, obviously they did more than partially help, but make them a little less aggressive than Jango Fett was. So that, yeah, that plays a part in it too.
Part of me though thinks that like we still don't know if clones like Clone Force 99 and Omega were purposefully made or accidental. So maybe they aren't really sure exactly how the clones are going to come out, like personality-wise. Because we see a whole spectrum of personalities in the clones.
Right.
And it does depend on which Jedi they're hanging out with.
Yeah, I think that's what George has said as much, that he wanted to tell like a nature versus nurture kind of story. And that, yeah, I mean, it's in the movie, the very first Clone Wars thing, Rex saying, experience outranks everything. And him being with Anakin changed the type of person that he was versus a clone that served under Ki-Adi-Mundi, for example.
James Stott wants to know if we'll see the origins of Scar Squadron in the Bad Batch.
Maybe. I don't really think so.
I don't think so either. This has come up a couple of times.
I think someone asked last week just where have they been? Because they're introduced in the original trilogy era, and then we just haven't seen them much lately.
Yeah.
I think they were a concept that Jason Aaron introduced for the comics, and then I don't know. In my opinion, it just never worked out. So I'm not expecting them to bring Task Force 99 into the Bad Batch.
Yeah, I feel like the Empire has a clear agenda as far as the Bad Batch goes, and I don't see them creating a group specifically like that. Like right now they're very into, I mean, they do have the Elite Squad.
And I see this little bit of potential with Rampart saying at the end of the Ryloth arc, like, it's a shame they don't fight for us. So I could see him maybe being like, we could use our own special group, but I'm just not expecting them to pull this thing that happened in the comics a couple times, even though it was directly inspired by the Bad Batch. I don't know.
They've got Crosshair.
Right. It's possible, but I'm just not expecting it.
Star Wars Exchange asks how much Star Wars content we would consume if we didn't have the channel, and what would we stop consuming?
Significantly less. I would not read everything. I'd probably still watch everything. Well, I don't know. Like, it's hard because I watched Star Wars Rebels because of this channel. I might not have given it a chance otherwise. There's a lot of things that I would be sad that I missed out on now, but I also would be completely ignorant to it. So I'm like, I just don't know what I wouldn't and would have given a chance if I never started this channel.
There's a good amount of books that I probably wouldn't have read. I mean, I haven't read close to the amount of books that you've read, but not really a book reader. But yeah. There's so many Star Wars books that I've really enjoyed. It's just some of them I'm just reading so that I can know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. I think I'd be choosier about my books too.
I don't even know if I would watch The Bad Batch, to be honest.
That's what I'm saying. Like, we watched Star Wars Rebels because of the channel, and then that led to we hadn't watched the Clone Wars before because it came out while we were in college, and it just kind of, we didn't grow up with it. So then we watched the Clone Wars, and yeah, like those were two things where I was just like, oh my god, I've been missing out. But I wouldn't have ever known that otherwise. I think I would have picked up the High Republic because just like the idea of it speaks to me as a fantasy fan. But yeah, I don't know. We definitely would have watched The Mandalorian, but it's hard to say because just so much stuff I gave a chance in the first place because we started this channel and I was like, I'm going to do that and I'm going to study for trivia. And now I would definitely be sad if I gave up on some things. But if I stopped the channel tomorrow, I would probably drop the Star Wars Adventures comics, like the main run. Those have never really grabbed me. I keep up with them just because that feels like going through the motions. But I think I'd probably keep up with just about everything else now.
Yeah. My concern is like, what would be on all these shelves?
Probably still a lot of Star Wars stuff.
Still a lot of Star Wars
Lego
stuff,
sets.
but
maybe more diverse Lego sets. I don't know.
we would have significantly less Lego sets, I think, because we wouldn't be building them every week.
That's it for patron questions. If you're a patron and you didn't see your question answered here, just head over to Patreon where we left you a written response. If you're not a patron, you can learn more by following the link in the description. Just $1 a month will get you access to extra Star Wars Explained content like audio commentaries for the films, and we're doing audio commentaries and reaction videos to all of the episodes of The Bad Batch right now, and we'll be doing that with every series moving forward from now on, and all of that's available right now if you're interested.
On to YouTube questions. Jedi Spartan 38 asks, what Legends ship or costume designs would we want to see come back to canon?
I've always been a big fan of the TIE Phantom. That's kind of my go-to. I think it could technically maybe be considered canon in something because it showed up in the X-Wing game, or I don't know. But it's never showed up in a story, and I wouldn't mind seeing it come back.
There's not a lot of Legends ships that I care about, unfortunately. Costumes? I mean, I like Mara Jade.
I figured I would take the ships and you would take the costumes, so that worked out perfectly.
Gotta love a bodysuit and a cowl and goggles. Why not? Locked in Lego wants to know if Hera and Kanan ever discussed their encounters with the Bad Batch.
I kind of think no. I still get the sense that by the time of Star Wars Rebels, Kanan still has a very negative, angry view on the clones. So the idea that he would have heard like a pretty nice story about that group of clones that he thought were trying to kill him right at the outbreak of Order 66. I mean, maybe. It certainly could have happened, but just based on what we've seen, I'm going to guess no.
Yeah, I don't think so. I feel like Hera bonded more with Omega than the Bad Batch with how young she was. So, if anything, maybe she brought up Omega, but I doubt it. That was a very quick encounter. It was important, but she's been through a lot.
Yeah. I mean, I could definitely see her telling him that story at some point, but I don't think that she got through to him to the point where he's like, maybe clones can be good.
Yeah. Water Paper asks if we could see Slick show up in the Bad Batch.
I like that idea.
Remind me who this is.
Slick was the clone back in like season 1 who betrayed his brothers and pointed out that like we're basically being used as slave labor. Like,
oh yeah,
we didn't have any
his
say
ship
in this.
didn't go off. He just like mentally
changed
his mind.
He just betrayed his brothers. Yeah, this was season 1, like in the start of the Clone Wars, and he was just like, this is wrong. And it's like one of those things where you're like, yeah, you're not wrong, Slick. I mean, your methods are bad. Like, you got people killed. But I think that would be a really fun character to bring back up.
Was he in anything past that?
No, and I mean,
that would be crazy for him to come back after all this time.
I wouldn't be surprised if he were, I don't know, executed. Like, just the way that people viewed the clones as expendable.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. And they were like, oh, we got this traitor clone. What do we do with him? Maybe they threw him in prison, which makes me think of Dogma too. The one that shot Pong Krell.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. We could see some of these characters show up. I think it would be a cool idea.
I just had a really dark thought of them just like returning him to the Kaminoans, and they do experiments on him to figure out why that happened.
Yeah. I mean, maybe. So maybe he is still alive. Maybe he's on Kamino. I think it would be cool to bring Slick back.
He's just like a lab assistant now.
Like, has he
Or
been
janitor.
lobotomized or something?
Maybe. Hassel wants to know if Crosshair could become the first Dark Trooper instead of the first Death Trooper.
That's another dark thought. Like, we're getting kind of grim today. So in Legends, there was a Dark Trooper Phase 0 that was basically clone troopers that they experimented on and like enhanced cybernetically and stuff. I mean,
That's kind of what they're already doing.
yeah, and that's close to what Death Troopers are as well. They had cybernetic augmentations. So there are still similarities there. I think Death Troopers have probably kind of replaced that whole idea. But yeah, the idea of any clone having to go under just cybernetic augmentation that they don't want, that's a grim one. Maybe I could see Crosshair volunteering for it, kind of like in a Grievous way. Like,
Yeah.
I want to be more powerful. I need to be stronger so I can take on my brothers. Like, I can see that.
Like, I don't like between Echo and Crosshair, the things that they've experienced. That's kind of the same idea.
Yeah, that's a good thing to explore because Echo has just not gotten enough time, I feel, in the show so far. So to kind of have a foil with Crosshair, and it's like Echo underwent all this stuff and he came out okay, but Crosshair doesn't. That's all the time we have for questions today. If you want to leave a question for next week's video, just put it in the comments below or sign up for Patreon to join our weekly Q&A discussion. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel.
Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitch.
And as always, thanks for watching, and football is life.
Football is life!